What is going on, guys? It's Justin from the J Media back with another video. So this has been a highly anticipated video, and if you guys haven't already watched the last one, we brought our Mitsubishi Lancer turbo build back home finally. So in this video, I'll be talking about everything that has been done to the car turbo wise since it got to the shop, and then we'll also do a full cost breakdown as well. I know a lot of you guys are interested. So at the very start of this build, whenever I started collecting parts for my turbo build, I did put it in a separate playlist, Mitsubishi Lancer turbo build. So if you guys want to check out the full progress from the very beginning of buying parts, what's needed, blah blah blah, all the way up to data logging and getting the car back home, I'll be putting all that in a separate playlist, so make sure to check that out on my channel. Okay, so let me do a quick walk around for those of you guys who might be new to the channel. So this car is my 2015 Mitsubishi Lancer GT. So it has a turbo added to it, so I'll be talking about what kind of turbo and what kind of parts I have. But yeah, it's not an Evo 10. So I got this car brand new back in November 2015, and I've been the only owner, so everything done to the car has been done by myself or my friends, or the help of the shop. So yeah, let's do a quick rundown. For those of you guys who don't know, the Mitsubishi Lancer GT comes with a 2.4 liter 4B12 engine. Some of the other models like the ES and I think the SE come with a 2 liter 4B11 naturally aspirated motor. With my turbo setup, you could do the same, pretty much the same mods. So whether you have the 2 liter 4B11 motor or the 2.4 liter 4B12, the same mods would apply as well. And again, if it's whether it's a manual transmission car or a CVT transmission, it will work as well. I know a lot of guys are saying like, hey, you have a CVT, don't waste your money and time, but yeah, it can be done. So let me do a quick rundown. I actually have a full long list. I know if you guys, some of you guys might be interested like in all the mods that's been done to the car. I'm not gonna do that because every single year on my channel I do have a full rundown on exactly everything that's done to the car. There's a bunch of parts on the car. So yeah, if you guys want to see that, like I said, I have it in my separate car features playlist on the channel. Once a year around like November or so is when I put out what's been added the past year to the car. So bunch of mods. This car is super custom. I taken me to a bunch of like car shows all around Texas. But let's get straight to it. Let's talk about what's been done to the car turbo wise. And like I said, I'll be listing out all the parts for the turbo build, so make sure to take out like a notepad and write it down if you guys want to. It's a really long list, so I have it on my phone. Whenever I add mods onto the car, I always have it in a separate list, whether it's interior mods, exterior mods, engine bay mods, whatever, suspension mods, just so I'm up to track on like what kind of parts I have on the car, because after a while there's just so many parts in the car that I kind of lose track. So let's get to it. I have a mixture of OEM parts as well as aftermarket parts. So we'll talk about everything that's done on the car turbo wise, and then we'll talk about the cost breakdown later. Okay, so here's the engine bay. Yes, I know there's a lot of like nice, pretty dress up parts. So first things first, we'll talk about the turbo. So the setup I have is the Ralliart TD04 turbo. You can either use the Ralliart TD04 turbo or the Evo 10 TD05 turbo. Either one would work. My turbo is sitting back over there. See if you can get a close up right over there. That's the turbo. And if you guys are wondering the main difference between the Ralliart and the Evo 10, for the Ralliart turbo, it is a smaller turbo. I guess the potential of it makes a little bit less power, but it spools up quicker. I think about 2500 RPM to 3000 RPM is when you feel boost kick in, versus the Evo 10 Turbo, if you're trying to go for more high horsepower numbers. You know, that's something that you could run a little bit more boost, and it spools up a little later. I think around like 3,000 or maybe like 3,500 RPM or so. So for my application, I'm not trying to go crazy as of right now. So yeah, TD04 turbo back there from the Ralliart. That's an OEM turbo. Let me go down my list. Yeah, my full list here. And then we also have the Ralliart turbo manifold, the exhaust manifold. So sitting right over there. I have the OEM one for right now. And then the Kinugawa wastegate turbo actuator. So on these turbos, the wastegate is outside. It's kind of hard to see, but right by the turbo, I switched that out. If you guys didn't know, my car has a CVT transmission. I know a lot of you guys are gonna hate. I do drive a manual car as well. It's just that whenever I got this car, the CVT was what I was looking for with the pedal shifters. With the CVT trends, it's a little bit weaker. You can still run boost, but just less boost. It's recommended anywhere from 5 to 7 pounds of boost on the CVT trends, versus on the manual you could run about 7 to 10 pounds of boost. Again, depends on your tuner and what kind of mods you have. Might be able to raise the boost up. And let's go along my list. Okay, so we covered the turbo, TD04 Ralliart turbo, the Ralliart OEM turbo manifold, the Kinugawa turbo wastegate actuator, and we also have a boost controller from Hellman Pro. So I have a manual boost controller right here. What this does is I can turn up or down the boost levels manually just by adjusting a knob. So again, with the Kinugawa wastegate actuator, it brings my boost levels all the way down. I want to say stock levels, the Ralliart turbo, I'm not sure how many pounds of boost it runs, but close to 20, I want to say. And the wastegate actuator limits at 4.4 pounds of boost, so brings it all the way down. Reason being, you don't want to blow up your engine by over boosting it. So all the way 4 pounds of boost is no fun. So Hellman manual boost controller raises this up a little bit to whatever you desire based on what your tuner tells you. And then for blow-off valve setup, I have a HKS blow-off valve setup right here on the back. So I know a lot of you guys like the turbo whoosh whoosh sounds. I do too, but with the turbo Mitsubishi Lancer setup, as well as most Evo 10s, it's usually recommended to have it recirculated. That means that it's not really released to atmosphere. So most of the time when you hear the turbo whoosh whoosh sounds, it's released to atmosphere. I can still hear my turbo sounds, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as loud. And apparently on turbo Lancers and Evo 10s, they tend to run a little rich, you know, whenever you release the atmosphere. So that's what I heard. Just better play safe. So HKS blow valve, you see it routed all the way to my intake. Another thing about the intake, so usually on the Lancer, the battery is sitting over here. Since I'm using the Ralliart turbo setup, I could keep my battery here, but the thing is I wanted this ARC intake box. So to do that, I have to relocate my battery. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Basically, we had to reroute the whole battery. My battery terminals, we rerouted my battery right over here. So you can't really see it, but in between this mesh, my battery has a custom bracket fabricated by my shop, Loans Automotive. My battery is sitting behind the bumper. So actually a lot of race cars do that. They hide it behind the bumper. There is where my windshield wiper fluid tank used to sit. We had to do that delete. I don't daily this car or really drive in the rain anyway. Let's see. And then let me go on to the next thing. So connected over here to the HKS blow valve, we also have this guy right here, which is the ARC blow valve intake pipe. So that is connected. So okay, for those of you guys who don't know, let me show you a rundown. So turbo's back there. You have your turbo manifold connects to your engine, and then from the turbo, this piece right here is your upper intercooler piping. I have it in titanium. So my upper intercooler piping, as well as my lower, it's kind of hard to see, but my lower intercooler piping is all from RK titanium. So that flows all the way here, all the way to my intercooler, which is an ARC intercooler. As you guys can tell, I love my JDM parts. They are not cheap. ARC parts are hard to find and expensive, but I love them. So that goes there. Lower intercooler pipe goes all the way up to the ARC blower valve pipe, goes to the intake, and goes to the blower valve and then to the intake. So it's pretty much one loop like this, down to the intercooler, up here. And on the topic of ARC, yes, I do have the ARC intake box. Like I said, you could use the OEM intake setup, that works too. I know a lot of people probably don't want to relocate their batteries, too much work. The most common ways to do it, like the Evo 10s, have the battery relocated to the trunk. And the reason why I didn't do that is because if you relocate it to the trunk, the crank is slightly slower. When you start up the car, you know, it's not as instant since it's pretty far back. But doesn't matter. And I want it to be unique, you know. I wanted to have my battery relocated to somewhere where people can't really see it. Like I said, Long was saying most race cars do that, so that's pretty cool. Alright, and then what do we have next? So we covered the titanium intercooler piping from RK Titanium, my ARC intake box. And then over here, this right here, I also swapped out my intake manifold. So the Lancer intake manifold works. It's a black plastic piece right here. I just wanted to swap it out. So this is the Evo 10 OEM intake manifold. To get it to work, you have to change out a few stuff. First thing is you have to do an EGR delete. So there's an EGR thing right over somewhere around here. You're gonna make a custom block off plate. Quite a bit of work. Again, if you guys want to see all this in detail, I have it on my Turbo Lancer playlist, so make sure to check that out. And then with the intake manifold, you also cannot run the stock Lancer fuel rail. The bolts don't quite line up. The bolt holes a little different. So I'm running a Torque Solution fuel rail, an aftermarket one. And then on my fuel rail, I also have a fuel rail pressure regulator gauge. That is from Tomei. Let's see what else here. Connected to my Evo 10 intake manifold, I have an Evo 10 OEM throttle body. So a little bit bigger throttle body. Again, it's not needed. I just wanted to change out more stuff. And on the topic of OEM Evo 10 parts, inside, you can't really see, but inside this valve cover, I have Evo 10 OEM cams. They are the OEM ones. I know some guys do like stage 2 cams. You can, but if you do like stage 2 or stage 3 cams, you really have to upgrade stuff like your springs and retainers, your valve springs, you know, stuff like that. So a little bit more work. And then I also change out my spark plugs. So currently on my 4B12 engine, I'm using the NGK 2667 Iridium spark plugs. And then with that, I also change out my injectors. So I'm just using the OEM Ralliart injectors. And so we already talked about Spark OEM. We have our NGK spark plugs, Ralliart injectors. And then my fuel pump is a Ralliart fuel pump. So the fuel pump is located all the way back. It's kind of hard to see, but in the passenger seat, underneath the passenger seat. So a lot of these things you can get all OEM. We'll talk about that later in the cost breakdown. But let's see, Ralliart fuel pump. And then I also need some custom oil line fitting kit. So turbo oil lines, as you can see over here, I have stainless steel braided oil lines. Basically that runs from my turbo to the block. And then also to my oil pan underneath the car. You get a well or bung. All those turbo oil lines, I mean, I'm sure you could find fittings, some AN fittings, and do it yourself. I don't really know too much about that stuff. So I just ordered it from a guy called Jonathan Bays. He pretty much pieced together all the custom oil lines. So he's an OG Turbo Lancer guy. And then going down, we also have my exhaust setup is modified a little bit. So from the turbo manifold down, I have HKS downpipe. Again, you could use the OEM Ralliart downpipe. I just wanted to go off the market. It's kind of hard to see. Just underneath there. It's a HKS downpipe. I deleted my cats as well, so I have a cat delete. And yeah, that's pretty much for the power mods. Let me go on to the engine bay cosmetic stuff. The cosmetic stuff that costs money, they don't add any power at all. So this big thing over here, my strut bar. Previously I had a Megan Racing one. Now I have a titanium carbine strut bar. So carbine strut bars, again another JDM brand, hard to find, really expensive as well. Let's see what else I have. And then with the titanium strut bar, I also change out my bolts over here to some titanium bolts. So these are from JD Customs, titanium bolts. Let's see, we also have my, I already talked about the Torque Solution fuel rail. We talk about the Tomei gauge right there. Oh, over here, my oil dipstick. So the OEM oil dipstick was, I think, like a white in color cap, really ugly, so I switched it out. This one's from Club Spec Chicago. It's just a little handle for the dipstick. We also have more stuff from Club Spec Chicago over here. That's switched out as well. That's my power steering reservoir. This black box right here. Just cosmetic stuff, you know. And then for my thermostat, I also switched it out to a Mitsubishi Racing thermostat. You can't really see it, but it's in the car. And then to make this ARC intake box work, so I still use my OEM mass airflow sensor. That works. I just had to buy this little piece right here and this silicone piece, and just, you know, this was, I think, from this brand called G+. Basically has an outlet for the intake and another outlet for the blow valve right there. And if you guys are wondering, HKS blow valves usually are not recirculated, they just release the atmosphere. I have a separate video again on my Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo playlist talking about how you can recirculate it, how you can DIY that. Okay, and then let's see. I'm looking through my list. Okay, ARC radiator cap. So again, another ARC dress-up part. A little extra, not needed. And then I also talked about, you know, with the CVT trends, there's some downsides to it. Again, I don't advise against it. My car runs good. It's just that with the CVT transmission, too much torque can kill it. So what you want to do is you want to make sure it's kept cool at all times. What we did was, on my GT model, we do have an OEM transmission cooler sitting right here on the driver's side underneath. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you guys can see through here. It's kind of hard to see. I have one oil cooler. What we did is we added another oil cooler. So we have two oil coolers, stacked it up, and I added a fan. So this setup, I spoke to other turbo CVT Lancer owners. Shout out to Scott Cowden. He is one of the pioneers, one of the first few turbo Lancers with a CVT transmission who actually tracks his car like 6 to 7 times a year. So he's been doing it for like 7 years now, and he told me that with the transmission coolers and a fan, is kept cool. Car hasn't let him down. And then there's another turbo Lancer owner in New York. Shout out to JDM Tony, otherwise known as Tony. He also has a CVT turbo Lancer doing the same setup. So again, if you guys are CVT, if you already have one transmission oil cooler, good. If you don't, you can double up, buy both. So I have two right now, one OEM, one off the market. You can get it from Mitsubishi. I just got a random universal eBay one that works too. And then also a fan. Let me see, you guys might be able to see it through here. So right here, this is my OEM transmission cooler, and then that's the black one right here is the aftermarket transmission cooler. So yeah, pretty much whenever I start up my car, the fans kick on and keeps the car nice and cool. The transmission cooler, if you guys are wondering, I got it from Hayden Automotive, Hayden transmission cooler. And then talking about cooling, the radiator fan, like I said, is the OEM ones, but I swapped out my radiator to a Koyo Red radiator, so can't really see, but it's hidden underneath there. Koyo Red new radiator, thicker core. Again, OEM one works. I just wanted to switch mine out. I think that's about it for the I guess the engine bay. We still have some mods that's done in the interior, so we'll check that out. That's related to a turbo build. So let's step inside the interior real quick. Alright, so let's step into the interior of the car. I want to apologize if you guys hear me sniffling in the background. It's really cold here, but I'm trying to make this video. It's below freezing temperature here in Texas, which is a little bit weird for us here. But yeah, I gotta put this video out. I got a bunch of content coming. So anyways, in the interior here, we have this gauge pot. So I know a lot of Evo 10 guys like to run gauge pots right here or on the A-pillar. I want it to be unique. I kind of run it like Subaru style just because over here is really empty. So I got this gauge pot. It's just some random no brand gauge pot off eBay, but the main difference is I got it done in carbon fiber. So real carbon fiber overlay. There's a guy who lives in San Antonio, pretty close to Austin, who, you know, pretty much can custom that. So let me switch the car to on to show you guys the gauges. All right, so there we have it. So let's adjust this to focus. Okay, so 3 gauges over here. My gauges here are from AEM. That's the brand. We have great AEM makes great gauges. The first one over here is my boost gauge to the left. Right now it's, well, obviously car's not on, so I'm not running any boost right now. When I hit boost, it'll show me what my boost levels are. Next thing over here is my air fuel ratio gauge. So you usually want to have it around like 10 or so, 10 or 11 whenever you're on full boost. And then over here on the right is my oil temperature gauge. If you guys didn't know, I also have a bunch of other gauges, riser mods. My water temp gauge, my voltage gauge, and my oil pressure gauge. It's not all necessary. I just like, you know, to monitor my car as well as the different gauges. They look cool. But if you really only have to spend money on a few gauges, you need your boost gauge to know how much boost you're running, and you also need your air fuel ratio gauge. So if you only have to spend money, just get these two. Like I said, some Evo 10 owners have it here and here, or even on the A-pillar. They make a whole replacement for this with 2 gauge, you know, pods right here. So yeah, I think in the interior, oh, small little stuff, dress up part, not quite turbo related, but I put this on as well. This is a TGS billet aluminum switch. So it's just a cover. The OEM one is black. I just switched it out. Again, something JDM, pretty pricey, but yeah, just wanted to beauty up the car, make it look cool, make it look nice. Alright, so I believe I've covered everything that's done to the car turbo wise. I hope it's not too complicated. Again, you know, I do have videos whenever I first started the build laying out exactly what you need to turbocharge your Mitsubishi Lancer. And then I also had a video when I had all my parts, I lay it out on the floor so you guys could see everything I had. But the reason I want to make this video is because along the way when I was, you know, turbocharging the car, I had to buy extra stuff. Like I already had my intake manifold from the Evo 10, and whenever we put that on, we were like, oh, the OEM Lancer fuel rail didn't quite bolt up. So I had to order more parts like the, you know, torque solution fuel rail. And then I ordered more parts like the Tomei, you know, pressure gauge. So it's just like so many parts that along the way, again, it's the first time for me. I'm not really a trained mechanic where I know everything. I just know the basics here, and I'm learning along the way. But I'm making these videos hopefully to educate some of you guys, share some knowledge that I've learned over the past few months in this process. It is a really exciting process, but also took quite a while. Again, if you guys are wondering, my tune, I am tuned on my stock ECU. I know some guys use Evo 10 ECU to get it tuned. I'm tuned on my stock Lancer GT ECU. That could work as well. For tuners, my tuner is Rick with Rallinspired. He's the owner of Rallinspired. There's a couple tuners out there who tune the Mitsubishi Lancer platform, whether NA or turbo. There's Rallinspired and there's H Tuning. The owner of H Tuning is Hiram. Both great guys. And they are not located here in Texas, if you guys are wondering, because there are shops here that say they could do it or they could try. The thing is, the Evo 10 engine is different from this one. The Evo 10 is a turbocharged 2-liter 4B12, sorry, 4B11. Mine's a 4B12. A little bit different. Again, I'm not sure if they know how to tune it. I don't want my car to be a guinea pig where they try to tune it and they can't get it right and mess it up and blow the engine. So I'd rather trust someone who knows what they're doing. I know Hiram does great work as well. I just personally never got tuned from H Tuning. He's located in Puerto Rico. And then my tuner Rick with Rallinspired is located in California. And he's been tuning Lancers, whether turbo or NA, for over 10 years. I think since like 2008 when the platform first came out. He doesn't just tune Lancers, he tunes like Subarus, Evos, and all that stuff. So he really knows his stuff. I trust him. He tuned my car when it was NA. Now that it's turbo, he's tuning my car again. And we're doing a thing called e-tune, which means we communicate it to email. If you guys want to get tuned by him, head to his website, rallinspired.com. Submit a ticket. You could, message him on like Facebook or Instagram, stuff like that as well. But the actual tuning process, he'll want you to go to the website to submit a ticket. And pretty much, let me show you. I have it here. You need some stuff like a Tektronix cable. You need like your ECU flash software and your Evo scan software for data logging. So quite a few stuff you need. But again, I have all that data logging videos in my playlist as well if you guys want to check out that. So yeah, he does great work. It's just a little bit of back and forth. He sending me a tune, and I load it up to my car, drive it around, data log, see how the car runs, and then send it back to him, and then he'll send me another revised tune to improve how the car drives. So a little bit of back and forth. That's why the car took a little while, because sometimes he takes maybe 1 or 2 weeks to get back to me, and then I need to go to the shop and then take another week or so to respond to him and send him an email. So a little bit of back and forth, but I'm glad the car's back home. We're still, fine-tuning the tune. It's pretty much done. The car drives and everything. I drove it back home for almost an hour. No problems at all. It's just that we're trying to get it to its fullest potential. You guys are wondering, I think with the current setup, I have hit about 9 pounds of boost. Again, I said 5 to 7 pounds on a CVT transmission. There are CVT turbo guys running about 10. Well, the guy in New York even ran 12 pounds of boost on his CVT turbo Lancer. I personally haven't got my car dynoed, if you guys are wondering. So I don't know how much power it's putting down. But based on what the other turbo CVT Lancer owner in New York did, he got his car dynoed. I think he said at about 10 pounds of boost, he was making right around 280 wheel horsepower, which is about 330 crank. So you're right around the 300 horsepower range. Again, it's not super fast or anything. You can push for more power if you build your block, if you pretty much change out the internals of your block, of your engine and stuff like that. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy just with the whole bolt-on stuff. And we'll see where it goes. Who knows, maybe in the future we'll build it for more power. But for right now, I'm happy. I should be right around the 300-ish horsepower range. Pulls better than stock, and this car is light. It's about 2,900 pounds compared to the Evo 10, which is about, I think, like 3,300 pounds. So 400 pounds heavier. So yeah, I think I'm going to put the cost breakdown video separately because this video has been really long. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys get a little more informed. I know a lot of you guys watching have not turboed your Lancers and are pretty much like wondering, what do I need to do, what parts do I need, blah blah blah. So stay tuned for the next video. We'll talk about the cost breakdown and everything. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to know when new videos are out. I put up videos pretty much 4 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday at 9 AM Central Time. Thanks so much for watching, and catch you guys in the next one.